Today, I invite us to have an exploration of rest from the historical, biological, spiritual, and emotional aspects, and how we use that as a tactic to heal from internalized oppression from the inside out. We declare that in this space for today, we will rest. Let us first understand the origins of the word rest, looking at the etymology of the word rest, which is sleep, repose, slumber. In Old English, rest, reste, rest, a bed or couch, intermission of labor, mental peace, state of quiet or repose. From Proto-Germanic, rasto, source also of Old Saxon, resta, resting place, burial place. From the Dutch, rust, Old High German, rasta, German, rast, rest, peace, repose, sense of absence or cessation of motion, which is from the late 15th century. The meaning that on which anything leans for support, thing upon which something rests, is attested from 1580s. So you can see that rest is very, very grounded. It's an interval of silence. It also marks dead from the 14th century on the motion of the last rest, the big sleep, the grave. And then in more modern times, the roadside rest stop for drivers on busy highways, what came about in the 1970s. The colloquial expression, give something a rest, stop talking about it, came about in the 1927. Rest and repose apply especially to the suspended activity of the body, ease and quiet to freedom from occupation or demands of activity, especially of the body, tranquility and peace to the freedom of the mind from harassing cares or demands. Now, we move into the dictionary definition of rest. Rest is repose, sleep, specifically a bodily state characterized by minimal function and metabolic activities, freedom from activity or labor, a state of motionless or inactivity, the repose of death, a place for resting or lodging, peace of mind or spirit, a rhythmic silence in music, a brief pause in reading, something used for support at rest, resting or reposing, especially in sleep or death, motionless, free of anxieties. So we begin to associate with the etymology and the definition that rest is about respite for the body, mind, and soul. In many cultures, rest is a part of religious or spiritual practice. The term Sabbath was a day of religious observance, prayer, and abstinence from work. For the Abrahamic religions such as Judaism, Christianity, and Islam, they had the tradition of a holy day of rest or prayer set aside each week. In Buddhism and Jainism, silent, week-long, or monthly retreats are part of the practice. So if we go further in time, some scholars believe that the writers of the Bible got the idea of the Sabbath from the Babylonians. So rest has been around for a very long time. And now we also need to look at the other side of the meaning to rest. There is another meaning to Sabbath, which is somewhat sinister, a supposed annual meeting, midnight meeting of witches with the devil. References of idle hands becoming the gateway to being an evil person. So this alternate interpretation for rest could also become a tool to control and manipulate people into never resting, because they could somehow fall into evil or be accused of being evil. So those are the historical aspects of the word rest and where it came from. So now we ask ourselves a question: what happened to rest? If we recall, during the late antiquity and early Middle Ages in Europe, serfdom was the status of many peasants under feudalism. It was a condition of debt, bondage, and indentured servitude. Rest was seen as something only people with power and privilege were allowed to do. When colonization of lands began and slavery became the labor force, rest was turned into a commodity that only a few were allowed. And the narrative of turning rest into a bad flaw, so it would not interfere with the rate of production. So much testimony exists that colonizers referred to people from conquered lands as lazy, which is why we have to mention anti-racism with the word rest. In the essay, Love and Need, Is Love a Package or a Message?, Thomas Merton argues that we are taught within the framework of competitive consumer capitalism to see love as a business deal. This concept of love assumes that the machinery of buying learning the truth about how systems of domination operate allow us to learn to look both inward and outward with a critical eye. Awareness is central to the process of love as the practice of freedom. And freedom is also rest. In our society that runs like a machine, time off for rest is often seen as a luxury. By using rest as the foundation for this disruption, we are doing the work in dismantling systems of oppression. Rest is a spiritual practice, a racial justice issue, and a social justice issue. Have you ever witnessed how people feel an enormous amount of guilt and apologize whenever they do rest? Those are symptoms of internalized oppression. Part of the work of dismantling internalized oppression and these instilled narratives that allow us to keep participating in the cyclical suffering requires us to understand and have praxis to create new habits. So now we're going to go into the biological functions of rest. It has been appreciated for at least 2 millennia that the brains of humans exhibit ongoing activity regardless of the presence or absence of any observable behaviors. As noted by Seneca in 60 AD, the fact that the body is lying down is no reason for supposing that the mind is at peace. Rest is far from restful. Now, that's a different sermon, right? That's the next step. Once we achieve learning to be comfortable in resting, then learning to quiet the mind in rest is another thing. However, scientific investigation of the brain's resting state presents conceptual as well as methodological challenges where studying the brain's responses to controlled stimuli, that is, the experimental paradigm that has dominated systems neuroscience throughout the latter of the 20th century, is comparatively straightforward. An expanded view of the tensions between task-based and resting state modes of investigation has been outlined in a recent review, and I suggest you all read it. It's really interesting. It's called A Brief History of the Resting State, the Washington University Perspective, by Abraham Z. Snyder and Marcus E. Rachel. Ask any physician, and they will tell you that rest is essential for physical health. When the body is deprived of sleep, it is unable to rebuild and recharge itself adequately. Your body requires rest. Ask any athlete, and they will tell you rest is essential for physical training. Rest is needed for muscles to repair themselves and prevent injury. This is true whether you run marathons, pitch baseballs, or climb rocks. Your muscles require rest. Rest is also important for individuals living with chronic health conditions. As a person living with multiple sclerosis, I can attest that your body will go symptomatic and shut down if you do not have the rest that is needed. We are dismantling. Ask many of yesterday's philosophers, and they will tell you rest is essential for the mind. Leonardo da Vinci said, every now and then, go away, have a little relaxation, for when you come back to your work, your judgment will be sure. Ovid, the Roman poet, said, take rest. A field that has rested gives a bountiful crop. Your mind requires rest. The emotional aspects of rest allows the nervous system to reset, provide us time to be with difficult feelings, and find support to address trauma and lingering feelings that often get pushed aside. The spiritual aspect of rest allows us to reflect and develop space so we can practice self-compassion, equanimity, and joy. Since we are disconnecting from the whirlwind cycle of pressure, so we can slow down to be present with our actions. So together now, we will engage in somatic meditations to reset the inner dialogue that conflicts with resting. I invite you to settle into your bodies as best as you can, erecting your spine, setting your feet on the floor. And if you are able and are comfortable, you could put either your hands on your heart or your hands on your abdomen. You're welcome to close your eyes or keep them open. And we're going to take 3 cleansing inhalations and exhalations. And now we will do vocal affirmations 3 times. So I will say the vocal affirmation the first time, and you can listen to it and connect with it. And then the following time, we will say the affirmation 3 times. I am worthy of rest. 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 Second affirmation. Rest is my divine right. 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 Third affirmation. As I rest, I honor my body. 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 Fourth affirmation. Rest allows me to connect with nature. 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 And our final affirmation. Rest allows me to connect with myself and others. Rest allows me to connect with myself and others. Rest allows me to connect with myself and others. Rest allows me to connect with myself and others. And as you're ready to come back into this space, you may open your eyes. Take a look at all the beautiful faces that have connected with us to rest. And I want you to remember, rest is holy. Rest is for everyone. Rest allows us to slow down and experience the beauty in life. Let this rest reset your soul.